My name is Marissa Claire Bennett. I'm 32 years old. And until a few weeks ago, I thought I understood the difference between love and tolerance. I thought love meant patience, space, trust. I thought being calm made me mature, and being quiet made me strong. Then my boyfriend looked me in the eye and told me his ex-girlfriend was going to sleep in my home, and if I had a problem with it, I could get a hotel. He said it so casually, like he was asking me to move my car from the driveway, like my discomfort was an inconvenience, not a warning bell. Like the condo I had worked 10 years to afford was suddenly a shared shelter for his unfinished past. Evelyn's staying over for a few days, Adam said, barely looking up from his phone. I was standing in the kitchen, sorting invoices for a design project, the city lights reflecting against the windows behind him. For a moment, I waited for him to laugh. He didn't. Evain, I repeated. You're Evelyn, he sighed, already annoyed. Don't say it like that. The woman you used to date, for 2 months. Marissa. Years ago. He leaned back against the counter, thumb still moving across his screen. She's my best friend. She's going through something. I watched his face carefully. That was something I had learned to do with Adam. Not because he lied often, but because, when he did, he liked to hide the lie inside exhaustion. Like I was too cruel to question a tired man. What kind of something, I asked. Her lease ended. New apartment fell through. She needs a couch for a week. Maybe 2. You're telling me this, I said slowly. Or asking me. That made him look up. His expression changed. Just slightly. A flash of irritation. The kind people show when they have already made a decision and resent you for noticing you were never included in it. I'm telling you because it's happening, he said. Please don't make this into drama. There it was. The oldest trick in the book. Label the other person dramatic before they even get to have a feeling. I set the papers down. Adam, I'm not comfortable with your ex-girlfriend sleeping here. He gave a short laugh. Not warm. Not kind. Of course you're not. What does that mean? It means you never trust me when it comes to Evelyn. I stared at him. She texts you every night. She's my friend. You turn your phone away when I walk into the room. Because you hover. You leave the room to take her calls. Because you make everything tense. Each answer came too quickly. Too practiced. Like he had rehearsed them somewhere I wasn't invited. Adam and I had been together for 3 years. He had moved into my condo a year ago. 2 bedrooms. Top floor. Downtown. My name on the deed. My money in the walls. The windows. The hardwood floors I had picked out myself. Adam helped with groceries and utilities. Nothing more. At first, I didn't mind. I made more. I owned the place. He made life easier in other ways. Or I thought he did. For most of that year, things were peaceful. Predictable. We cooked dinner on Sundays. Watched old movies when it rained. Shared coffee in the morning without talking too much. Then, Evelyn Carter's name started appearing on his phone again. At first, it was harmless. A meme. A memory from college. You'll never believe who I ran into. Adam called her his best friend. Like that title erased the history attached to it. Then the messages became nightly. Then the calls started lasting an hour. Then came the giggling from the couch. And then the screen turning away. I asked once, weeks before everything exploded, is this the same Evelyn you dated? Adam waved me off, like I had asked whether the sky was blue. We dated for 2 months. We were basically kids. You were 26. Marissa. He smiled then. But it didn't reach his eyes. Don't be insecure. I let it go. Not because I believed him completely. Because I wanted to believe the man I loved would not make me feel stupid for trusting him. But Wednesday night changed everything. She's like a sister to me, Adam said, standing in my kitchen, defending his ex-girlfriend's right to sleep in my home. I almost laughed. Like a sister should come printed on a red flag. I said no. I told him. His jaw tightened. You don't get to control who I care about. And you don't get to invite your ex into my home against my wishes. Our home? He snapped. The words landed cold. Not because they were true. Because he believed saying them loudly enough could make them true. I took a breath. Adam. This is my condo. His face hardened. There it was. The thing underneath all of it. Resentment. Quiet. All. Waiting for a doorway. So that's what this is, he said. You own the place? So you get to dictate everything. No. I own the place. So I get to decide whether someone I'm uncomfortable with sleeps here? He threw his hands up. Fine. If you're that uncomfortable, maybe you should get a hotel until she finds a place. Something inside me went still. Not angry. Clear. That sentence was a door closing. I looked at the man I had loved for 3 years. And suddenly, I saw every tiny compromise I had made stacked behind him like unpaid debt. Every time I swallowed a question. Every time I let him call me insecure. Every time he made me feel like having boundaries was a character flaw. I nodded once. Understood. He blinked. Like he expected more. Tears. Yelling. A fight he could later describe as proof that I was unstable. I gave him nothing. That night, while Adam showered, I booked a hotel room under his name. Not mine, his. A clean business hotel 15 minutes away. Queen bed. Free breakfast. Flexible checkout. I even used the rewards points from my travel account because, apparently, I still had a sense of humor. Then I packed a bag. Toothbrush. Charger. 2 work shirts. Jeans. Socks. His expensive face wash. The cologne Evelyn had once complimented on Instagram. I placed the bag by the front door. When Adam came out and saw it, his eyebrows pulled together. What's this? Your hotel. My what? You told me to get one if I was uncomfortable. I said, closing my laptop. I solved the problem more efficiently. He stared at me. You're unbelievable. No. I said calmly. You want Evelyn to stay. I don't. So you can stay at the hotel. And she can figure out somewhere else to go. His face flushed. You're being controlling. I'm being clear. She has nowhere else. She had enough time to call you every night. She had enough time to arrange housing. That's cruel. What's cruel? I said. Is telling your girlfriend to leave her own home, so your ex can feel comfortable. For the first time that night, Adam had no immediate answer. He just grabbed the bag and shoved it aside with his foot. I'm not going anywhere. I smiled politely, though my hands were cold. Then neither is she. He laughed like I was bluffing, but I wasn't. By morning, Adam was slamming drawers and muttering about trust issues. I made coffee, answered emails, said nothing. Silence can scare people when they are used to controlling the conversation. By noon, I changed the Wi-Fi password. Bitwo. I logged him out of my streaming accounts. By 4, I locked my office, and before sunset, I installed 2 small cameras in the common areas, living room and hallway. Not the bedroom. Not the bathroom. Just the shared spaces of my own home, not because I was jealous, because when someone tells you your comfort no longer matters inside the place you own, you stop explaining and start documenting. Friday evening. Evelyn arrived. 2 suitcases. 1 gym bag. A soft beige coat. Perfect hair. Perfect smile. The kind of smile a woman wears when she already knows she has been defended before she even walks through the door. Adam opened his arms, and she stepped into them. The hug lasted too long. Too familiar. Too easy. I stood in the kitchen, holding a mug of coffee I didn't want, watching my boyfriend breathe in the perfume of a woman he kept telling me was family. Evelyn looked over his shoulder at me. Marisa, she said, bright and delicate. Thank you so much for letting me crash here. I looked at Adam, then back at her. I didn't. The room went silent. Adam's smile tightened. Evelyn's eyes flickered. Just once. And that was when I knew. This was not a misunderstanding. This was a test. And they both expected me to fail quietly. Evelyn recovered quickly. Women like her always did. Not because they were villains. Not because they were masterminds. Because they had spent years learning how to smile through uncomfortable truths until everyone around them felt guilty for bringing them up. Oh, she said, with a small laugh. Well, thank you for not calling the police. Adam immediately chuckled, as if she had made a clever joke, as if I were supposed to laugh too. I didn't. I simply took my coffee and walked away. Behind me, I heard Evelyn whisper something, then Adam laughed again. The sound followed me down the hallway. For the first time in 3 years, my home felt unfamiliar. That night, they stayed in the living room. I stayed in my bedroom. At 11 o'clock, I heard laughter. At midnight, wine glasses clinked together. At 12:40, she șaptea M. Evelyn's voice drifted down the hallway. At 1:12 M. Adam laughed so hard that I could hear him through a closed door. At 2:01 M. Silence. Then came the click. The guest room door closing. I stared at my ceiling. I wasn't jealous. Not anymore. Jealousy comes from fear of losing something. What I felt was different. It was the slow realization that maybe what I thought I had already didn't exist. Saturday morning. I woke early. Old habit. Coffee. Emails. Gym. Routine. The things that keep life stable when people don't. Adam and Evelyn didn't emerge until nearly noon. I was reading on the balcony when they finally appeared. Adam looked relaxed. Too relaxed. Evelyn looked comfortable. Too comfortable. 10 minutes later, she walked into the kitchen, wearing one of Adam's oversized hoodies. Something tightened in my chest. Not because it belonged to him, because she wore it naturally. Like she'd done it before. She noticed me looking. Oh, she said. Hope you don't mind. I got cold. I smiled politely. Not my hoodie. The color drained from Adam's face. For a second. Just a second. Then it was gone. Evelyn laughed awkwardly. Adam immediately changed the subject. Interesting. Very interesting. The rest of the day continued like a performance. Every time I entered a room, conversation shifted. Every time I left, voices lowered. Every time I looked at them together, they acted just slightly too casual. People who have nothing to hide rarely work so hard to appear innocent. By evening, Adam finally confronted me. We were alone in the kitchen. Evelyn had gone to shower. Can you stop making everything uncomfortable? I looked up from my laptop. Excuse me. You know exactly what I mean. No. Explain. His jaw tightened. The comments. What comments? I didn't invite her. That wasn't a comment. It was a fact. He stared at me. I stared back. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he exhaled sharply. She's going through a difficult time. Sue and I. His expression changed, as if he genuinely hadn't considered that possibility. Marissa. No. Adam. Let's be honest. I closed my laptop. You invited your ex-girlfriend into my condo. She's my friend. You spend more time talking to her than me. That's not true. You text her every day. We've known each other for years. You hide conversations. I don't hide anything. The lie arrived so quickly that even he seemed surprised by it. I watched his eyes. He looked away first. That told me everything. Adam, I said quietly, if the situation were reversed, would you be comfortable? His silence lasted too long. Then came the answer. It isn't reversed. Exactly. Because he knew the answer was no. He knew if I invited an ex-boyfriend into our home and told him to get a hotel, he would lose his mind. The hypocrisy sat between us. Like a third person. He could see it. So could I. Neither of us mentioned it. Instead, he chose another route. His favorite route. If you can't trust me, Maybe we shouldn't be together. There it was. The guilt card. The relationship grenade. Pull the pin. And hope the other person becomes so afraid of losing you that they stop asking questions. 3 years ago. It might have worked. Now. I smiled. A real smile. Calm. Almost relieved. Maybe we shouldn't. Adam froze. I watched confusion sweep across his face. Then shock. Then concern. Because for the first time, the threat hadn't landed. For the first time, I wasn't chasing him. I wasn't defending myself. I wasn't apologizing for having boundaries. I was agreeing, and that terrified him. You don't mean that? I do. The room became very quiet. Then the bathroom door opened. Evelyn appeared. One look at our faces, and she immediately sensed tension. What happened? Nothing. Adam said too quickly. I stood. Good night. As I walked away, I could feel both of them watching me. For the first time, I think they realized something important. I wasn't fighting to keep this relationship alive anymore. I was evaluating whether it deserved to survive. Sunday morning brought another surprise. Mutual friends had been planning dinner for weeks. 8 people. Reservations already made. Normally, I would have canceled quietly. Normally, I would have protected Adam. Normally, I would have hidden my embarrassment. But I was done protecting someone who wasn't protecting me. So I opened my laptop. Subject, change of plans. Hey everyone. Unfortunately, I'll be canceling dinner this weekend. Adam has invited his former girlfriend Evelyn to stay with us indefinitely. And apparently accommodations are being rearranged around that decision. Hope everyone understands. We'll reconnect another time. Marissa. I read it twice. Simple. Truthful. No insults. No exaggeration. Then I hit send. 5 minutes later, replies started arriving. What? Wait. What? His ex-girlfriend. Indefinitely. Is everything okay? By the end of the hour, Adam's phone was exploding. Message. Calls. Notifications. Question. People were curious. Confused. Concerned. Mostly because the situation sounded exactly as ridiculous as it was. Adam stormed into the office. What did you do? I looked up calmly. Told the truth. You humiliated me. No. I leaned back in my chair. You humiliated yourself. I just stopped covering for you. His face turned red. Evelyn stood behind him looking uncomfortable. For the first time since arriving, she looked unsure. Good. That meant reality was finally entering the room. You made it sound inappropriate. I laughed. That surprised all 3 of us. Because it was the first genuine laugh I'd had in days. Adam, I said softly. If a situation sounds inappropriate when described accurately, maybe the problem isn't the description. Neither of them answered, because neither could. By Monday, the atmosphere inside the condo had become icy. Adam avoided me. Evelyn avoided me. I avoided both of them. Yet something strange happened. The less I reacted, the more nervous they became. People expect anger. They know how to defend against anger. Silence is harder. Silence leaves room for imagination. And imagination is often worse than reality. By Tuesday, Evelyn had started leaving small messes around the condo. Shoes by the couch, coffee cups on tables, a jacket draped across one of my dining chairs. By Wednesday, she was acting less like a guest and more like a resident. Adam never corrected her. Not once. By Thursday, I noticed something else. Whenever they thought I wasn't paying attention, they moved closer together. Not touching. Not openly. Just comfortable. Too comfortable. A private world hidden inside public behavior. The cameras quietly recorded everything. Every conversation. Every movement. Every late-night interaction. I rarely checked the footage. I didn't need to. Not yet. Because deep down, I already knew something. The truth was approaching. Slowly. Inevitably. Like a storm gathering beyond the horizon. And when it finally arrived, it would destroy whatever remained of us. Friday night came. The city lights shimmered beyond the windows. The condo was quiet. At least it appeared quiet. Around midnight, I went to bed. At 1:00 a.m. I received a motion alert from the living room camera. Normally, I ignored them. This time, I didn't. I picked up my phone, opened the app, and stared at the screen. Adam sat on the couch. Evelyn sat beside him. Far too close. Neither looked sleepy. Neither looked uncomfortable. Neither looked like two people respecting boundaries. My heart slowed. Not faster. Slower. The way it does right before life changes forever. I watched. And within seconds, I realized I was about to see something neither of them could ever take back. I stared at the camera feed. The living room glowed softly, under the dim lamp, near the window. The city lights flickered behind the glass, painting long shadows across the floor. Adam and Evelyn sat together on the couch, too close. Close enough that their shoulders touched, close enough that neither of them seemed aware of personal space anymore. I held my breath, not because I was hoping to be wrong, because some part of me already knew I wasn't. Evelyn said something. Adam laughed. She leaned her head slightly toward him. He turned. Then it happened. The kiss? Short. Natural. Comfortable. Not the awkward mistake of two people caught in a moment. Not confusion. Not alcohol. Not an accident. A kiss that belonged to people who had already crossed the line, long before that night. For a second, everything became perfectly still. I felt no urge to scream. No urge to run downstairs. No urge to cry. The strangest thing about betrayal is that the pain often arrives before the proof. By the time evidence appears, your heart has already been preparing itself. I closed the app, set my phone down, and stared into the darkness. 3 years. 3 years of loyalty. 3 years of compromise. 3 years of believing I was building a future with someone who had quietly kept a door open behind me. I slept surprisingly well. Maybe because uncertainty was finally gone. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise, made coffee, answered emails, read through project proposals. By the time Adam emerged from the hallway, I was already dressed. He looked nervous. Whether he knew why or not, I couldn't tell. Morning, he said. Morning. A few minutes later, Evelyn appeared. She looked between us. The tension was impossible to miss. Neither of them spoke much. Neither did I. Silence filled the kitchen. Heavy. Patient. Waiting. Around noon, I made a phone call, then another, then one more. By 3 o'clock, I was sitting in a lawyer's office. His name was Daniel Foster, a calm man in his 50s who listened carefully without interrupting. I showed him the deed, explained the living arrangement, explained the situation, explained the footage. When I finished, he folded his hands. What outcome do you want? The answer came immediately. I want them gone. Daniel nodded. No reconciliation. I smiled faintly. No. Good. That surprised me. He leaned back. The clients who struggle most are the ones who haven't made a decision. You sound like you've already made yours. I had. The kiss didn't end my relationship. It revealed that the relationship had ended long before I noticed. The kiss was simply the receipt. By the time I left his office, paperwork was already being prepared. Formal notices, legal documentation, everything done properly, everything documented, everything clean. That evening, Adam tried to act normal. He suggested ordering takeout. Evelyn offered to help cook. The performance continued, but now I could see every line of the script, every smile, every glance, every carefully chosen word. I almost felt sorry for them. Almost. At dinner, I placed 2 envelopes on the table. Adam frowned. What's this? Evelyn looked confused. I folded my hands. Open them. The room became quiet. Adam opened his first. Evelyn followed. Then both faces changed. Shock, confusion, panic. Exactly in that order. What is this? Adam asked. 30-day notice to vacate. His eyes widened. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. Evelyn looked pale. You want me to leave? I want both of you to leave. Adam laughed nervously. The way people laugh when reality arrives before they are emotionally prepared. Marissa. Come on. No. His smile disappeared. You can't kick us out. I can. You wouldn't? I already did. The silence that followed felt enormous. Adam stood first. You're throwing away 3 years over this. I looked directly at him. No. My voice remained calm. You threw away 3 years. His expression hardened. What does that mean? For a moment, I simply watched him. Then I reached for my phone, opened the camera application, selected the video, pressed play, and placed the screen on the table. The color vanished from both their faces. Instantly, there they were. The couch, the conversation, the kiss, the proof. No explanation could survive evidence. The room fell silent. A silence so complete, I could hear the refrigerator humming behind us. Adam looked sick. Evelyn looked terrified. Neither spoke. Neither moved. Finally, Adam whispered, You recorded us. I met his eyes. I recorded common areas inside my property. That's insane. No. I leaned back calmly. Inviting your ex-girlfriend into my home against my wishes and then kissing her on my couch was insane. Evelyn stared at the table. Adam looked trapped. Good. Truth has a way of shrinking rooms. A few moments later, he tried another approach. It wasn't what it looked like. I actually laughed. Not loudly, just enough. Because hearing those words after watching the video felt absurd. What exactly did it look like? Neither answered. I continued. Was there a second couch where different people were sitting? Still nothing. Was there another Evelyn? Silence. Another Adam. Nothing. The truth sat in the middle of the table like a third witness. Adam finally exhaled. It was one mistake. There it was. The universal defense. One mistake. One moment. One accident. As though betrayal only counts when repeated. As though a knife hurts less because it enters only once. Evelyn finally spoke. It just happened. No. I said quietly. It didn't. Both looked at me. I held their gaze. Kissing happened. I pointed toward Adam. Texting every night happened. I pointed toward Evelyn. Private conversations happened. Back toward Adam. Defending her over me happened. Back toward Evelyn. Moving into my condo happened. Then, I folded my hands. The kiss was simply the first thing you got caught doing. Neither denied it. Because they couldn't. For the next hour, the conversation spiraled. Excuses. Apologies. Half-truths. Revisionist history. Every variation of the same message. We're not bad people. We didn't mean to hurt you. It wasn't planned. We're confused. We care about you. Eventually, I stopped listening. Not because I was angry. Because I was finished. Anger still requires investment. Closure doesn't. 2 days later, Evelyn began packing. Quietly. Avoiding eye contact. Avoiding conversation. Avoiding me. Adam remained. At first, he seemed convinced he could fix everything. Flowers appeared. Apologies arrived. Long, emotional speeches followed. One night he sat beside me on the couch. The same couch. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. I love you, he said. I looked at him carefully. For years, those words had mattered. Now they felt distant. Like hearing a song I used to enjoy. I believe you, I said. Hope flashed across his face. Then I continued. But love without respect isn't enough. The hope disappeared. And for the first time, I think he understood. Not that I was hurt. That I was gone. Emotionally. Completely. A week later, mutual friends started learning the truth. Questions spread. Rumors followed. People connected dots. The carefully crafted image Adam had protected for years began falling apart. One evening, a mutual friend messaged me. So Evelyn was the sister. I stared at the text for several seconds. Then simply replied, apparently not. The response came immediately. Damn. That single word said everything. By the end of the month, Evelyn had disappeared completely. Adam was still there. Still hoping. Still delaying. Still pretending 30 days wasn't a real deadline. But the deadline was approaching, and unlike his promises, this one was going to be enforced. Day 30 arrived. Then passed. Adam was still living in my condo. Not because he had nowhere to go, Because he believed I would eventually give in. For 3 years. Compromise had always been my role. He assumed it still was. He assumed that if he waited long enough, I would get tired, soften, and allow him to stay. He still didn't understand what had changed. I wasn't negotiating anymore. I was enforcing a boundary. On the morning of day 31, I came home from work and found him sitting exactly where he always sat. The couch, sweatpants, television muted, half-packed boxes scattered around the living room. The scene looked almost theatrical, as if he wanted me to feel guilty, as if the boxes themselves were evidence of effort. He didn't even look up. "You're really doing this?" I placed my keys on the counter. "Yes. You'd throw away everything we had." I almost smiled. It was remarkable how often he framed the situation as my decision, as if he hadn't spent weeks prioritizing another woman over our relationship, as if I had somehow caused the betrayal by responding to it. "You already asked that. And the answer hasn't changed." Finally, he looked at me. There was anger there now. Not sadness. Not regret. Anger. Because guilt had failed. Apologies had failed. Manipulation had failed. And people often become angry when the tools they rely on stop working. "You've become cold." I nodded. "Probably. You weren't like this before." "No." I looked around the room. "Before. I trusted you." That ended the conversation, at least temporarily. 3 hours later, I called the non-emergency police line, exactly as my attorney instructed. Everything was documented. Everything was legal. Everything was ready. 2 officers arrived 15 minutes later. A man and a woman. Professional. Calm. Efficient. Adam heard the knock and immediately stood. His face went pale. For the first time, I think reality finally reached him. The female officer entered first. "Good evening." I handed her the prepared folder. Property deed. Identification. Vacate notice. Proof of delivery. Timeline documentation. She reviewed everything carefully. The male officer spoke with Adam. Several minutes passed. Then the female officer closed the folder. Her expression was neutral. Professional. Certain. "Mr. Hayes," she said, "you need to leave." Adam looked stunned. "No. You don't understand?" "We understand. This is my home." The officer shook her head. "No. This is her property." Silence. The truth sounded very different, coming from a uniform. Adam looked toward me, perhaps expecting intervention. Merce. A last-minute rescue. He found neither. Eventually he laughed bitterly. A short, defeated sound. "So that's it." I met his eyes. "Yes." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then he delivered the final line people often say for moments like these. "You'll regret this." Maybe he expected fear. Maybe he expected hesitation. Instead, I answered honestly, "No." The certainty in my voice surprised even me. Because I wasn't speaking from anger. I was speaking from peace. 2 hours later, he was gone. 4 boxes. 2 suitcases. 1 final glance. No, goodbye. The door closed behind him, and silence filled the condo. Real silence. Not the tense silence of resentment. Not the fragile silence before another argument. Just quiet. Clean. Honest. I stood in the living room for several minutes, listening, breathing, existing. The space felt larger somehow. Lighter. As if the walls themselves had been holding tension. The next morning, I changed the locks. That afternoon, I hired professional cleaners. By evening, every trace of the relationship was disappearing. The guest room, the bathroom, the kitchen cabinets, the closet, 3 years reduced to boxes and receipts. Strangely, it didn't hurt as much as I expected. Not because the relationship meant nothing. Because I had already mourned it. The grieving process began long before the breakup. It began with the late-night texts, the hidden screens, the dismissive comments. The moment someone starts treating your concerns like inconveniences, grief quietly enters the room. The official ending is usually just paperwork. A week later, one of our mutual friends called. You heard. Heard what? Adam moved in with Evelyn. I leaned back in my chair. Of course he had. Where else would he go? The friend continued. Apparently things aren't exactly working out. That got my attention. Oh, turns out she isn't as independent as he thought. I laughed softly. Imagine that. The details emerged over the following weeks. Evelyn's apartment situation had been far less temporary than advertised. Financial problems, employment issues, debt, a collection of realities carefully hidden beneath confidence and charm. The fantasy collapsed quickly. Reality usually does that. Adam had spent months idealizing someone who existed mostly in memory. Once everyday life entered the picture, the illusion couldn't survive. Part of me felt sorry for him. A very small part. Most of me simply felt detached. His choices were no longer my responsibility. My life. Meanwhile, it began moving forward. I repainted the living room. A brighter color, more natural light, more warmth. I replaced furniture, reorganized rooms, created spaces that reflected who I actually was, instead of who I had been trying to become for someone else. Friends visited more often. Laughter returned. The condo felt alive again. One Saturday evening, I hosted a small gathering. Nothing extravagant, just close friends. Good food, music, conversation. At one point, someone raised a glass. To new beginnings? Everyone cheered. I smiled, because for the first time in a long time, the phrase didn't sound like a cliché. It sounded accurate. Later that night, after everyone left, I stood by the window overlooking the city. The same window where I had once questioned my instincts. The same window where I had wondered whether I was overreacting. The same window where I had almost convinced myself to tolerate disrespect in the name of love. Below, the city lights stretched endlessly into the distance. Beautiful, quiet, certain. My phone buzzed. A new email, not from Adam, not from Evelyn. Just another client, another project, another opportunity. Life moving forward. Exactly as it should. I smiled and set the phone down. 3 years had ended. That part was true. But something more important had begun. Self-respect, clarity, peace. People often believe strength means fighting harder, arguing louder, holding on longer. Sometimes strength is the opposite. Sometimes strength is recognizing that a door should close and having the courage to lock it. Adam once told me that if I felt uncomfortable, I could get a hotel. He thought I would leave my own home to make room for someone else's priorities. Instead, I stayed. I protected my boundaries. I protected my peace. And eventually, I reclaimed both. If this experience taught me anything, it's that respect is not something you negotiate for. It is something you require. The moment someone treats your dignity like an obstacle, stop debating your worth. Stop explaining. Stop asking for permission to matter. Pay attention to actions. Trust what they reveal. And remember this, love can survive many things. Distance, stress, mistakes, hardship. But it cannot survive repeated disrespect. Not if you value yourself. And if walking away costs you a relationship, but saves your self-respect, then the price was worth paying.